The movie begins with a young woman named Cora preparing her weekend supplies and getting ready for the massive storm expected to hit the quiet area of Shelter Island. Inside the car, her dog Charlie won't stop barking at a group of trees along the road. Donald helps her carry the bags and tells her she has bought enough food to last more than a month, while he believes the storm won't last more than a few days. Cora laughs at his comment. As they continue down the road, Cora tells him that the girls won't believe the news. Donald is worried, not because the storm will be long, but because it will be extremely violent. The next day is Halloween, and the girls might be delayed. Cora explains that the girls have already left their home and moved in with her, and they have nowhere else to go. Charlie suddenly starts barking loudly when Cora gets into the car. She is surprised by his aggressive behavior, while Donald looks up at the sky with concern and notices that nearby stores are beginning to close. Lightning starts flashing across the horizon. As Cora drives through a dense forest, there are no other vehicles nearby. Charlie begins thrashing around in the back seat, forcing Cora to pull over. Suddenly, the dog jumps out of the window and runs deep into the woods. Confused, Cora leaves the car and follows Charlie, trying to track the sound of his barking. But the barking grows fainter as the thunder gets closer. At that moment, a circle of evil begins forming at the base of a tree. Cora has no time to escape before sparks shoot toward her and seize her. When Cora finally returns to her car, it is obvious that something terrible has happened to her. The story then introduces the three girls traveling to Shelter Island. Emma is the youngest and quietest of the group, and she suffers from recurring nightmares. Marley is the rebellious one who hates the idea of moving into their aunt's house. Sarah has become the one responsible for all three of them. The money they inherited from their parents isn't enough to cover Emma's medical treatment, leaving them unable to find a suitable place to live. Tired of the long trip, Emma draws a pair of eyes on the fogged-up car window, but the image frightens her, and she quickly wipes it away. When they arrive at the ferry bound for Shelter Island, the area is completely deserted, and the gate is closed. Sarah says that a ferry is scheduled to depart at this time, while Marley hopes Sarah is mistaken and that they will have to turn back. A ferry employee appears at the window and tells them that a powerful storm is approaching and that ferry service will be suspended until the weather improves. He warns them that if they board this ferry, they won't be able to leave the island for several days, and he thinks it's a terrible idea, especially at this time of year. Sarah tells him that his opinion isn't going to change their plans. When the employee notices another vehicle waiting in line, he stops trying to convince them. Curious about the other traveler, Marley looks behind them and realizes that Emma has disappeared. One of the rear doors is open, but nobody noticed it before. When Emma is found outside the vehicle, Sarah asks the employee if he has seen her. He says he didn't even realize there were three girls in the car. Sarah and Marley begin searching the area and calling out Emma's name. The driver behind them is a young man named Stephen. He follows Sarah and tells her that he saw Emma near the ferry. He also tries to convince her not to go to the island, explaining that dozens of accidents occurred the last time a storm struck the area during Halloween. Annoyed by all his warnings, Sarah asks why he is heading to the island if it's so dangerous. He replies that he has his reasons, and she responds with the same answer. Marley eventually finds Emma crying by herself and asks what's wrong. Emma tells her that something bad has happened to their aunt. Sarah insists that their aunt is fine and reminds them that she spoke with her that very morning. But Emma isn't convinced because she saw the disaster in one of her dreams. Sarah joins them and asks Emma what happened, but the girl gives a vague answer, as if she already knows Sarah won't take her seriously. Marley then tells Sarah that Emma's nightmares have been getting worse and that she's been living through a nightmare ever since surviving the car accident that killed their parents. After a long delay, the girls finally return to the car and board the ferry. Meanwhile, Stephen checks how many bullets are left in his handgun. From a distance, Shelter Island already looks like a frightening place. The two vehicles reach the other side, where someone is secretly watching them from behind the curtain of a small booth. As the girls drive through the main street, Sarah notices that the town seems completely deserted. Marley also points out that their aunt isn't answering her phone. Marley is worried about how much Emma has been sleeping lately, but Sarah explains that it's simply a side effect of the medication that makes her drowsy. A little later, Marley notices someone watching them from a window and becomes frightened, urging Sarah to leave the area. At the same time, Stephen drives through the main street as if he's tracking the girls. On the way to their aunt's house, Marley starts asking for directions, and Sarah finally admits that they are lost. To make matters worse, their phones aren't working, leaving them unable to use GPS. The girls begin arguing, but Emma interrupts them with bad news. She points to the fuel gauge, which shows that the car is completely out of gas. As thunder echoes around them, terrifying sounds begin coming from the surrounding forest. They decide to continue on foot rather than stay in such a frightening place. Before long, the car comes to a complete stop due to the empty tank. Sarah struggles to stay calm and tells the others that their aunt's house is at the end of the road, so they'll have to walk the rest of the way. The disturbing sounds grow louder as Sarah pulls bags from the trunk. Marley suggests coming back for the luggage later, while Sarah insists on finding Emma's medication at the very least, but she can't locate it. Eventually, they leave the bags behind and start running. Emma trips and injures her leg, but with the help of her sisters, she manages to keep moving until they finally arrive at their aunt's address. When they saw their aunt's car abandoned on the road with clear signs of a struggle, Sarah told Marley to take Emma inside the house while she went to investigate. Emma immediately started screaming and warned her sister not to go near the vehicle because she had seen the exact same scene in one of her dreams. Sarah ignored the warning, although she was clearly terrified. When she reached the car, she gathered her courage and opened the door, only to be horrified by what she saw. Their Aunt Cora was emitting sparks from where her eyes should have been. She was extremely weak and struggling to breathe. As Sarah tried to process the horrifying sight, Stacy appeared. She had also become a victim of the attack and told Sarah that the disaster had reached the forest. According to her, something evil had begun to take shape when lightning started striking the trees. The creature was made of twisted tree branches woven together, with fire burning inside its body. Meanwhile, Sarah still hadn't returned to the house, and the phones weren't working. Marley had left Emma in the basement, and told her it was absolutely unsafe to go outside. Emma asked about Sarah, and Marley tried to hide how worried she really was. Suddenly, the door swung open. Marley approached cautiously, thinking it might be Stacy, but she was relieved to see Sarah instead. Sarah failed to understand the warning hidden within the prophecy and insisted that some crazed attacker was responsible for what was happening to the island's residents. She also told Marley that they had lost their aunt. In the candlelit basement, Marley began boarding up the windows to protect them from the danger outside. Meanwhile, under Sarah's care, Stacy slowly regained consciousness. Stacy tried to warn the girls. She admitted that she hadn't believed any of it at first either. She swore that a terrible evil had fallen upon the island and wouldn't stop until Halloween was over. Before she could explain what they were supposed to do, she collapsed unconscious again from exhaustion. Marley was deeply shaken by Stacy's words and asked about their aunt. Sarah then revealed the terrible details. When Marley pointed out that Emma's dream about the catastrophe might not be a coincidence after all, Sarah had no answer. On Halloween morning, Marley informed Sarah that Stacy's condition was getting worse. Sarah knew Stacy needed to get to a hospital, but they couldn't leave the house without a plan, especially with a deadly predator roaming free. They decided to deal with the fuel problem first and transferred gasoline from Cora's vehicle into a fuel can. When they reached the car, it became obvious that Sarah and Marley couldn't work together without arguing. When Sarah shared what Stacy had said about the last Halloween storm that struck the island, Marley exploded with anger and blamed Sarah for everything, accusing her of forcing them to move to the island in the first place. As the argument escalated, Sarah shoved Marley, causing her to fall against the driver's door. At that exact moment, what remained of their Aunt Cora's body slipped from the vehicle and landed right in front of Marley, subjecting her to one of the most traumatic sights imaginable. Shortly afterward, the sisters noticed that Cora's car had vanished. Emma couldn't walk such a long distance with her injured leg, and Stacy didn't have much time left. Their only option was to move Cora's remains and use the vehicle. At the same time, Emma woke up calling for her sisters. Marley went to check on her while Sarah tried to pull the car out of a ditch. Emma stood on the front steps, frightened after waking up alone. Marley told her that it wasn't safe outside and urged her to go back inside. Before she could finish speaking, Stacy's corpse was violently hurled through the house and smashed through the front door. Stacy's lifeless hands grabbed Emma, and strange branches began growing from her body. The growth quickly spread and wrapped itself around Emma's leg as well. Marley pulled with all her strength, desperately trying to free her sister, but she couldn't. In the end, she was forced to use an axe to separate Emma from Stacy's body. Just in time, Sarah managed to free the vehicle from the ditch, allowing her sisters to jump inside. By then, Stacy's body was completely covered in branches that moved on their own, and the fiery creature appeared above her. Emma sat crying in the back seat, convinced that her nightmares were somehow responsible for everything happening around them, and that a tragic fate awaited everyone she loved. While driving through the main street, Sarah struck something with the vehicle and got out to investigate. It quickly became clear that the collision was the least of their problems. Marley convinced Sarah to head toward the ferry terminal in search of help, but when they returned to the car, they discovered that Emma was gone. Emma had left behind a message written on the window, telling them to stay away from her. Sarah and Marley split up to search for her, and soon came across more victims of the evil spreading across the island. The only person who seemed unharmed was Stephen, who greeted Sarah suspiciously and told her to stay quiet. Meanwhile, Marley entered a nearby store, calling out for Emma and trying to see through the darkness. Suddenly, Donald appeared in front of her. She froze in shock when she saw the evil tree-like creature standing behind him. She had witnessed the attack with her own eyes, and moments later she found herself trapped beneath a corpse while the monster dissolved into thin air. She eventually managed to free herself, but she failed to notice that the evil had taken another route and emerged from a nearby sewer drain. The creature materialized above a vehicle and grabbed Marley's leg, causing her to scream in terror. Just as the monster was closing in on her, she was saved when a young man named Toby arrived and opened fire, giving her the chance to escape and get away from the danger. Emma was hiding inside the store and decided not to come out after seeing the creature raging outside. However, it seemed to be focused specifically on her. Meanwhile, Sarah was tied up inside the booth. When Toby brought her sister back and promised to stay quiet, Marley allowed her to untie Sarah. Besides Toby and Stephen, there were also Nicole and Alex. The two had hidden inside a freezer when the disaster began and managed to survive. Stephen was a popular internet personality who spent his time exploring supposedly haunted places and documenting his experiences for his followers. He admitted that he had never encountered anything truly supernatural before. A few weeks earlier, a drunk man had told him about the cursed island where 6 witches had fled centuries ago to escape being burned alive. According to the legend, on the night of their trial, a violent storm struck the island, and lightning struck the witches, granting them the power to return one day stronger than ever and ready for revenge. The legend also claimed that every 100 years, when that night comes around again, the island's residents are slaughtered. The girls wanted to go out and search for Emma, but Toby stopped them, explaining that his plan was to stay hidden until sunrise. Alex interrupted and pointed out that the monster didn't kill every victim immediately. Based on the marks left behind, she concluded that some people had been dragged away, all in the same direction. She used their friend as an example. The woman had tried to get into the freezer, but Toby had prevented her from entering. Since she wasn't among the victims who had been killed, Alex believed she might still be alive. During the discussion, a woman suddenly began screaming in the garage. Alex wanted to go outside and tried to save her through a nearby window, but the girls quickly realized that the creature was using the victim as bait. Marley criticized Stephen for filming the attack, intending to upload the footage later. Suddenly, his phone fell and made a loud noise. Moments later, the woman burst into flames exactly as the monster had intended. Alex rushed back inside, and everyone tried to remain silent. Toby then announced that he was returning to the freezer and that once he shut the door, nobody else would be allowed inside. Stephen was the only one who decided to join him, while the others chose to continue searching for the kidnapped survivors. Alex pointed out that their ammunition was running low, while Nicole suggested heading to the police station, which wasn't far away, to ensure everyone could travel more safely. Marley decided to distract the monster, and ran outside before Sarah could stop her. Meanwhile, Toby and Stephen stood guard at the door, preparing to defend themselves. Stephen began feeling guilty, and wondered if he should have gone with the others. As they talked, tiny sparks started slipping into the room. Toby declared that the only thing that mattered to him was surviving. When Stephen turned to answer him, the creature had already fully formed behind Toby. Toby was attacked and killed instantly. Stephen tried to escape the freezer, but he was dragged inside and met the same fate. At the same time, Marley set fire to a random vehicle, causing a massive explosion. No sound in the area could compete with the force of that blast. The others used the distraction to reach the police station. Sarah attempted to call for help over the police radio, while the others searched for weapons. Nicole was horrified when she found the remains of a police officer, and let out a scream, desperately hoping the creature hadn't hurt her. The three survivors divided the weapons they found and began studying a map to figure out where the missing captives were being taken. The markings pointed to an abandoned factory deep in the forest. When Nicole placed her finger on the map to indicate the location, her finger suddenly burned, and the map itself burst into flames. A moment later, the creature's arm smashed through the wall and grabbed Alex by the head. After killing him, the monster turned toward the two women, but they were prepared and immediately opened fire. The bullets did no real damage, but they bought the women enough time to escape. As the creature began reforming once again, Sarah realized that Alex was gone. Then she heard Nicole screaming. Sarah escaped the police station as the last survivor of the group and found Marley waiting for her in their aunt's vehicle. Marley explained that she had been searching for Emma but had only found her bracelet. Still, she remained hopeful that Emma might be among the other survivors. Sarah explained the route to the factory, and once they got close, the two sisters got out of the vehicle and made their way through the forest. Eventually, they reached a massive circular pit. Marley explained that this was the place where the witches had once been imprisoned. While examining one of the wooden stakes surrounding the pit, she was startled when a hand burst out of the ground and grabbed her arm. The sisters soon realized it belonged to another survivor. The woman was severely traumatized and begged them to stay quiet, but they continued calling Emma's name and tearing apart everything surrounding the stakes. At last, Marley found Emma. The sisters immediately began freeing her from the branches that had trapped her, while the other survivors started screaming before being dragged away. Moments later, the cursed tree creature appeared again. Sarah decided to confront it directly, but she was violently thrown aside. At the same time, Emma still wasn't fully conscious, and Marley struggled to get her out of there. When Marley discovered an opening leading underground, she left Emma sitting on the ground and tried to break the lock. Suddenly, someone appeared beside her. She jumped in fear, only to feel relieved when she realized it was Sarah. Screams echoed throughout the forest, prompting the three sisters to hurry down the ladder and seal the hatch behind them. The underground area was completely dark, so Marley lit her lighter to see. Emma admitted that she was frightened, but Sarah assured her that they would be safe as long as they stayed together. Emma didn't have time to respond because Sarah was suddenly dragged away and pulled toward one of the walls. From the other side, the creature was attempting to absorb her into its body until Marley managed to free her. The three sisters ran desperately, searching for a place where the monster couldn't reach them, but it seemed impossible. Sarah insisted that they would find a way out, but Emma broke down crying and told them they wouldn't succeed. She had seen everything in her dreams and knew the ending would be tragic. Sensing another attack approaching, Sarah told her sisters that she loved them. Then she ran toward the light and screamed at the creature, drawing its attention and sacrificing herself. Emma cried uncontrollably while the creature split apart for a moment, but eventually it pursued Sarah to the far end of the chamber. When the monster closed in on her, Sarah dodged the attack. For a second it looked as though she was escaping, but instead she slammed the doors shut and trapped herself inside with the creature. Marley continued trying to protect Emma at all costs, but Emma broke free and ran to save her sister. By the time she managed to open the door, it was too late. Sarah had been burned alive, and the creature was stretching through the doorway. At that point, Marley decided to hide and wait until sunrise. She lit her lighter and began provoking the creature, drawing its attention toward her. When she reached the opening, she heard Emma screaming and noticed that the monster was no longer there. She climbed back down and continued taunting it until she finally got its attention, then ran outside. Marley never expected to survive that day, but she was determined to take the monster down with her. When the creature emerged from beneath the ground, she aimed a long metal rod at it, triggering a lightning strike that hit it directly. Several hours later, Emma climbed out of the opening and found Marley lying motionless on the ground. She shook her repeatedly until Marley regained consciousness and told her that sunrise was near. Exhausted and barely able to move, Marley asked Emma to go find help. As Emma left, the sound of rustling and tearing leaves echoed through the area, making Marley uneasy. When she looked up, she was horrified to see that the creature had fully recovered and was preparing to attack her once again. Her worst fears came true when she heard Emma challenging the monster. Marley begged her to run, but Emma refused to leave her behind. Finally, the first rays of sunlight reached the forest. The terrifying tree creature shattered into thousands of sparks, unable to withstand the sunlight. In the end, Emma helped Marley back to her feet, and the two sisters slowly walked home together, relying on one another for support. And that is how the movie ends. Thank you for watching, and don't forget that your opinion matters to us. Be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel.